Welcome to the Fast Leader Podcast, where we uncover the leadership life hacks that help you to experience breakout performance faster and rocket to success. And now, here's your host, customer and employee engagement expert and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Jim Rimbach.
The number one thing that contributes to customer loyalty is emotions. So move onward and upward faster by gaining significantly deeper insight and understanding of your customer journey and personas with emotional intelligence. With your empathy mapping workshop, you'll learn how to evoke and influence the right customer emotions that generate improved customer loyalty and reduce your cost to operate. Get over your emotional hump now by going to empathymapping.com to learn more. Okay, Fast Leader Legion, today I'm excited because I think we all can learn from this person who we have on the show today. Dr. Rick Brinkman's parents met in a Polish ghetto at the beginning of World War II. His father was German and his mother was Polish. They married and were sent to Auschwitz and survived through the grace of multiple miracles, including finding each other again after the war. Rick has always felt, even as a child, that he was on a mission to turn conflict into cooperation, and he's been doing his part by teaching communication, performing 4,000 programs in 17 countries over the last 30 years, and writing 5 books published by McGraw-Hill. In his first book with McGraw-Hill, Dealing with People You Can't Stand, How to Bring Out the Best in People at Their Worst, he describes how to transform universal difficult behaviors like whining, negativity, nitpicking, attacks, tantrums, snipping, know-it-alls, and passive yes and maybe and nothing people. That book is in its 3rd edition, has been translated into 25 languages, and is used in college courses. Whenever he would do trainings on difficult people, the subject of meetings would always come up, as many of these difficult behaviors occur in the meeting context. Though the strategies in the first book would be valid in the meeting context, a more effective plan is to put a meeting process in place that prevents them from ever occurring in the first place. His current release, Dealing with Meetings You Can't Stand, Meet Less and Do More, provides that meeting process. In Rick's experience, everyone at a meeting has something of value to contribute, and when you put it all together, you get something greater. The integration of people's different points of view on any subject creates what he calls holographic thinking. Holographic thinking produces higher quality ideas and solutions, and it does so quickly, so you can meet less and do more. Rick currently resides in Portland, Oregon with his wife, Lisa, and 2 Siamese cats. Rick Brinkman, are you ready to help us get over the hump?
I'm ready. Let's do that.
All right. Now, I've given our Legion a little bit about you, but can you tell us what your current passion is so that we can get to know you even better?
Well, I love speaking in front of groups and teaching communication. I feel like every person I touch touches so many more. You know, it's one big reaction after another. And my mission is to give people the skills they need to prevent people from getting angry, stressed out, whining, miserable, and that has a positive effect on everybody else.
You know, as you were saying that, I started thinking about a part of the book that I guess you can say it's kind of like that underlying thing, or what happens before the communication in a verbal sense, or even, nonverbal, starts to manifest itself. And you talk about, different zones within the meeting process. And you talk about one thing that I think people are just kind of oblivious to, and myself included, and that's the caution zone. What is the caution zone?
Yeah, this is from the lens of understanding, which is in both People You Can't Stand and Meetings You Can't Stand. And it's a way of understanding human behavior, that we act in different ways depending on 2 factors: context, where are we, what's going on, like at a meeting, or we're in a restaurant, or right now we're doing this Zoom interview, or relationship, who are we with? And we have 4 basic intents. We want to get things done, get things right, get along, and get appreciated. And one of those becomes more important depending on where we are and what's going on. So the caution zone is when people are not getting exactly what they need. So if I need to get things done, all right, and let's say we're in a meeting context, and I've got I look at my watch, we got to get this meeting done, and people are going down tangents, my behavior starts to get more controlling. All right, look, people, why don't we do this? I just start taking over in order to get things done. On the other hand, if I wanted to get things right, I'm usually going to slow things down because I have to make sure all the details get covered. If people are telling me at a meeting, oh, it's about 50, I'll go, about 50, and then I'm going to dive deeper into perfection, into the details no one's paying attention to. If I want to get along with people and I'm not sure it's happening, I go into approval, do things to make sure everything's okay between us. So in the meeting context, I'm going to be very agreeable. You're not going to really know where I stand. I'm just going to be, sure, whatever you guys want. And if I want to get appreciated, it's not happening. That caution zone is get attention. Well, I've been doing this for 30 years, and here's what we did at my last company, da 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 da. And I start pontificating and to get people's attention. So that's that caution zone where people are just starting to act out. It's not full-blown danger zone yet, but it can quickly become that.
Okay, so as you were talking, I started thinking about the fluidity of all of this. Because I see, even myself and I see others kind of moving all around in this whole caution zone area. So if I'm a person who is ultimately responsible for the results, and I'm trying to get this group to, be productive, in its time together, how do I manage all of this?
Well, you first want to recognize where people are in general in that zone. Are they being real agreeable? Are they seemingly have a need for attention? Are they always just staying on task, get it done? Are they diving into details, get it right? So you want to understand that about people. And then the people you work with, they will seem to be in a certain zone more often than not. But that's because we only know people in limited context and in relationship in general to ourselves. So it's an illusion. Know that people are, I was interviewing a CEO to do some seminars for a company. She tells me, oh yeah, she's usually in that get it done control zone. If she gets a little too stressed out, she admits she becomes a tank. That means tank just runs over everybody. All right, here's what's going on. Boom. But then she says when she goes home, she becomes a whiner to her husband about the problems at work. Now, from her husband's perception, how does she possibly run a company? She's such a whiner. But he does not get to see her in her blazing tank glory. So you got to know that people are moving around differently. And the first thing to do is really recognize yourself. Where do you go? Are you really caring about the details? You just want to get it done? Are you needing her attention? Recognizing it in yourself is one of the quickest way to then start recognizing all around you.
Gosh. Okay. So I need to do a better job of having my radar up and mouth closed. Is that what you're saying? Okay. So you really, the book is about a plan and putting together a plan. So how do we actually structure our plan so that we do get more done in less time?
Well, you're going to get more done in less time. First of all, it begins in the preparation phase. I found that the problems in meeting all fall into either preparation, people, process, and time. Not either, really. All of them are simultaneously there. So in the preparation phase, one thing is questioning the meeting's existence. Is this really a good use of meeting time? Meetings really should be for interaction, not information dissemination. Fun fact, Cambridge Psychological Society found that the average person 24 hours after a business meeting only remembers 9%. And of the 9% they actually remember, half is inaccurate in some way. So it's kind of stupid to disseminate information. What you want to do is give it ahead of time. People are instructed to read it. You do not catch people up at the meeting, and then you discuss the information. That's a good use of meeting. It's got to be for interaction. And then the second thing we need is a good agenda, and the agenda must be relevant to everybody who's there. If it's not, you're going to have people multitasking and distracting.
Well, even with that first point, I started thinking about how I see most people come to a meeting and that they don't even look. You send them pre-work, you send them, information beforehand to review. It's like, hey, bring your questions with you. They don't do that. Have you looked at this? And you get crickets. Yeah. So how can you? Do you have to, talking about that prep work? Do you have to get some type of commitment with people, or say, you know what, you didn't look at it, so you don't have a seat or a say? How do you prevent that from happening?
Well, backing up a little, we have to have an agreement that, hey, people, how'd you like to try a process that will make our meeting shorter, more productive, and it's a rare human being who says, no, we don't want that. We love wasting time and being miserable. Come on. So you have to come in, first of all, like, okay, people, let's try an experiment that'll make our meetings better. What works to our advantage is everybody hates meetings universally, including the person who you knew if they weren't there, it would actually be a better meeting. Even that person will tell you how bad it is. So you got to come in with some sort of agreement. Then you brief people on the process, and then you run the process, which is we're going to start on time. We're going to end on time. We're going to have a relevant agenda. Every agenda item is going to have a statement of purpose, 2 lines or less, telling it why is this so important? I'm not doing 10 million other things that I should be doing. And also a statement of focus. What do you want from me? So, for example, let's say the office is being moved. So we have an agenda item, office move. Statement of purpose is to minimize the impact of the office move on you and your team's workflow. Okay, that's important. What do you want from me? We want you to come knowing your team's workflow schedule. So when you hear the presentation on how the office will be moved, you can recognize when might be a better time of day or particular day to move. Now I'm oriented, and that's where focus starts at the meeting. We have to be oriented to the right thing on the agenda. So we're going in. Again, keep in mind that we're already briefed people on the process. They know we're going to do an experiment 2 times. And so part of this experiment is, okay, you're going to have to read the information, and we're going to start on time whether you're there or not. And we're not going to rebrief you on the information. We're just, so you, and everybody, it's not imposed because everybody hates meetings universally. So it's like, born free, finally, somebody's doing something about it instead of just letting it be chaotic.
So I'm thinking of a particular scenario where, while I may have had some project manager responsibilities, but it's the executive sponsor who's the one that's the wild and unruly one. What do you do about that?
And what way are they wild and unruly?
Show up late. They don't look at anything beforehand. I mean, they just don't participate. I'm the executive. I don't need to do that.
Yeah, they would also have to be included in the process of how we're going to do things and then play by the same rules. I know in the book, there's one great moments in meetings. People told me these stories. And one of the things I recommend is flight recording, that you write down what people say. And there's various reasons for that. It gets a group of the holographic thinking, which we could talk about. But in their case specifically, they had an IT director who didn't have to be at the meeting, but had the authority to come and would just make snarky, distracting comments, start an argument one side, then 5 minutes later, change and argue the other side. So then this person who had attended my program has remembered flight recording, and he began the next meeting by saying, all right, we're going to flight record. And whatever anybody said, he just simply innocently bulleted on the whiteboard. And when the IT director made a snarky comment, he bulleted it on the whiteboard. And that ended those comments and the attendance of the director.
That's a great point. I guess you could say there's a little bit of a passive-aggressive behavior. However, it definitely accomplished the ultimate end goal, which was have a better meeting and get more done in less time. Okay, so I can imagine, talking about just this particular topic, and you even said it yourself, how people hate, and you talked about a lot of words that were really, rooted in emotion, and a lot of this does because people get frustrated, and this whole thing is that I know there's a lot of quotes that you've probably come across in your research and your studies and dealing with all of these different people, but is there one or two that you can share?
Well, one of my favorites is, and it relates to the agenda, it's by Yogi Berra. If you don't know where you're going, you end up someplace else. And, I think it's very important to think of a meeting like a flight, an airplane flight. You got a bunch of people trapped in a contained space for an X amount of time. They may feel it's uncomfortable, a waste of time. The plane can leave late. The meeting can start late. Then it can go off course or be hijacked. It can arrive late. Then you miss your connections, your other meetings. And so, imagine getting on a plane where the pilot says, well, we'll be leaving at some point and going somewhere. We may get hijacked off course. That's par for the course. And eventually we will probably get to our destination, we think. It's going to be crazy, right? But it's the same way in a meeting. So it's got to be that structured. And the agenda is your flight plan, and questioning the meeting's existence is part of the pre-flight checklist. Make sure we have all the right people there, and why are we actually meeting. And then when you get into a meeting, you really need 3 items. You need air traffic control. And part of that is speaking order. There's got to be an order to speak. Otherwise, the assertive people are going to dominate and the passive people drop out. Then there's got to be a time limit for any moment to speak. Another part of air traffic control can be like you could have a whiteboard, and whatever topic is on the floor at that moment gets written on the whiteboard. Whatever process we're using, discussion, brainstorm, pros, cons, gets written in the process. So now we're all focused on the same thing at the same time in the same way. So that's all air traffic control. And then we need flight recording, as I mentioned, where you take whatever people say and you bullet it on a PowerPoint slide or just something that's visual to a whole group. Because when you make communication visual, 2 things happen. One is it remains over time. So if I have an important point at the meeting and I see it, you see it, 10 minutes later, it's still there. So that wipes out a lot of repetitions where people repeat themselves. Because if I have a concept that I feel is important to the group mind and it's not written, I'll say it a number of times as a way of keeping an awareness. But once I see it, that's great. And that's especially great for people who are in that get appreciation zone of the lens, because they see that the message has landed and there it is on the whiteboard or a flip chart or whatever. So that's flight recording. And then we need a pilot who's going to keep the time to make sure there's a time limit every time anybody speaks, and that we stay on track with our agenda.
That's very helpful. And I think everybody can resonate and understand that. So I don't think you'd have anybody missing or, getting dropped out because they didn't understand what you just walked through. I mean, that's perfect. Now, one of the things that I started thinking about too, as you were talking, is that there's a difference between, having a meeting by which you're doing, some, ideation, you're having, divergent type of thinking activities going on. It's a little bit, more of that, hey, bring some creativity to this process. But, you're describing to me is what I sort of think of something that is not divergent, but convergent, thinking process. It's like, we're going to flow and we're going to accomplish these things and actually work within our time frame, within our box. I mean, so is there a time where you do something different if you're trying to actually get divergent thinking happening?
Well, for that, we'd probably want to be in a brainstorm mode in that point. And for that point, like, all right, we'd first of all know we have X amount of time to do it. We would also, if we're brainstorming for ideas, we would probably want to first consider what are the relevant criteria. Here are some factors. Some factors are flexible, some are not. Like federal law says blah, 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 blah. So we can't violate that line. Our budget is blah, blah, blah. So maybe that's a little bit more fixed. And then we have things, but we're looking for something that the customer is going to really appreciate and notice, something that we can implement across all our departments. All these things that I'm naming are criteria. So they give us kind of some parameters in which to be more creative, because if we don't have those few parameters, we'll be creative in ways, but federal law says da da da. All right, here's a great idea, but the budget won't handle it. So to give people parameters in the first place and then set them loose, that really unleashes great creativity.
Okay, so that is there a risk by trying to have a divergent thinking activity process, but then putting some convergent things on it, like budget constraint? Does it potentially squash somebody's, ability to think differently?
It could, to a degree. I mean, if you want, you could have the option of not giving any criteria, let everybody go yeehaw. And then what'll come up is, well, this is a great idea, except for the budgetary thing. So now but we really like it. So now we're at another step of kind of creative thinking. What's a way we could accomplish what we like about this idea, but is not costing as much or violating the regulation? So you'd want to still pull out the essence of the idea. And in fact, one thing I recommend to groups is that they make sure that whenever they have an idea and they share something, they realize that every idea is the end result of, first of all, an intent, an overall purpose, that they run through relevant criteria that they know, at least unconsciously, and then out pops idea. So here, I once had a couple, I used to do counseling. At the end of the visit, she suddenly turns to him and goes, "Honey, let's go to the rose gardens." He goes, "Nah." She goes, "Okay." I say, "Wait a second. What's your intent? Why'd you bring this up?" She says, "Well, we're feeling closer than we have in a long time. We have an hour before I have to pick up the kids. I thought it'd be nice to spend some quiet time together." He says, "Oh, that's a great idea. I don't be outside. Too hot, too buggy. How about the cafe we've been meaning to try?" Now, she doesn't really care about rose gardens itself. She cares about time together. That's the intent. Rose gardens just a way to do it. Maybe she's thinking time. It's on the way home. It won't cost anything. Budget. It's a nice, quiet place. So that's really why people reject or like ideas. It's for the intent and criteria. So what I urge people to do is whenever they present an idea, present it in this order: intent, criteria, here's what I'm thinking, idea. That makes it clear to everybody else, because we may not be able to do the idea that they're suggesting, but when we get their intent and their criteria, that's the gold. That's the real gold in the room.
I think that's a beautiful framework. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to steal that from you.
Oh, you got it.
Okay, so even talking about your bio, talking about these different books, and talking about all the people you've met, but I'm sure you yourself have had some humps that you've needed to get over. And they've really made a difference for you, so that you were able to get more done faster, right? But is there a time, that you can actually share with us when you've had to get over the hump?
Well, I would say the first one that occurs to me as far as a hump is being comfortable speaking in front of groups. I clearly at one point had an intuition that I had to get through that. And that was in college. I started volunteering for talks or courses that required talks. And I'll never forget this moment. And back then, it's early 70s. I'm wearing overalls most of the time. And I could put my hands in the overalls. There's a comfortable place. And I'm doing this talk for a big auditorium. It was an anthropology course. And each of us had to read this short book, almost like a Cliff Notes about this particular culture. And this was some obscure tribe in South America I'd never heard of before. And they really had nothing. They had no religion. They had no culture. They didn't make any arts and crafts. I went down the list that you're supposed to go down. I was just saying, deadpan, they had no art, no culture, nothing. And the only tradition I can find is when your sister first goes out with a boy, your brother has to beat up the boy. And the room broke out hysterical and laughing. And I wasn't trying to make a joke. That was true. That was really true. But I couldn't believe the relief I got from just doing that. And that's when I realized comedy. Okay, I got to start integrating some humor into this, which is good for me and good for everybody else.
That's a good lesson. So I know, when you start thinking about, all the things that you have going on, all these different talks, all these different, coaching and consulting projects, this book, when you think about one of your goals, what is one of them?
Well, I really want to make a difference in the world. I feel I remember my mother was on death march as the Russian front is advancing fast. Auschwitz is now liquidated. They're taking people west towards British or American forces. You dig a ditch in the road to slow the Russian tanks down. If you're too weak, they shoot, and no time to waste. And one night they stopped the camp. She broke down and started to cry. German soldier says, "Was ist los?" She said, "I can't take it anymore. I'm starving. I'm freezing. Kill me. I want this to be over." He tears the sandwich. He hands her half and says, "Listen, the war is almost over. You will live. We will die. Now watch yourself. Or do you go stand guard in front of this fire?" The next day, she woke up with a little bit of hope and noticed that whenever you march to a German town and the road bent in a crescent, there'd be a clean blind spot. The guards couldn't see you. That night when they stopped to camp, she realized there were many minutes at a time. There was not a guard to be seen. There were 70 guards, 1,000 girls. She got up and walked away. Went into this deserted German town, into a deserted house. There's a Christmas tree. It's January 1945. Apples hanging on it. She eats an apple. And before she could feel good, she's gotten away. She realizes she left her sisters back there, a friend. They'll think she's dead. And she thinks, I could not live the rest of my life knowing maybe I could have done something. If I can do this once, I can do this twice. She sneaks back, lets herself be captured, finds her sister and friends, tells them about the two opportunities. The next day they escape. And so, the decision of that German soldier has gone 69 years into the future to this moment in this interview. So we're all making a difference and affecting each other. And I feel like I'm on a mission to turn conflict into cooperation. And when human beings get together and really hear each other in meetings, they can come up with ideas and synthesis that really is a greater good and takes all factors into account.
Well, the Fast Leader Legion wishes you the very best. Now, before we move on, let's get a quick word from our sponsor. An Even Better Place to Work is an easy-to-use solution that improves the empathy and emotional intelligence skills in everyone. It provides a continuous diagnostic on employee engagement and provides integrated activities that will improve the leadership and collaboration skills in everyone. This award-winning solution is guaranteed to create motivated, productive, and higher-performing employees that have great working relationships with their colleagues and your customers. To learn more about An Even Better Place to Work, visit beyondmorale.com/better. All right, here we go, Fast Leader Legion. It's time for the Hump Day Hoedown. Okay, Rick, the Hump Day Hoedown is a part of our show where you give us good insights fast. So I'm going to ask you several questions, and your job is to give us a robust, yet rapid responses that are going to help us move onward and upward faster. Dr. Rick Brinkman, are you ready to hoe down?
Let's hoe down. Woohoo!
All right. So what do you think is holding you back from being an even better leader today?
Oh, I probably take on too much. There's so many things I'm interested in and love to do, whether it's web design and my own site or video production. I love it all.
What is the best leadership advice you have ever received?
Lead without leading. Just really tune into people, tune into their strengths, and be willing to just speak up. You don't have to order people. You just have to step up and take charge in an easygoing manner.
What is one of your secrets that you believe contributes to your success?
I listen more than I talk. Listening to people, paying attention to those around us, even, going back to your caution zone. If you start paying attention, you'll start seeing where people are going in the caution zone. It was always right there before your eyes, but you were too busy thinking about what you had to say or trying to say it. But if you step back and you just observe for a while, you start to see how all the pieces are moving around you, and then it's easy to intervene.
What do you feel is one of your best tools that helps you lead in business or life?
Observing, being an observer of people. Maybe it's because I was an only child, so I was very entertained within my own mind, but I definitely pay attention to what's going on around and genuinely listen to people and try to not just understand them, but they're not always clear about what they want to say, but I'm paying attention in a level where I'm going to help them get to what they want to say. I'm curious about where they really want to go. I already know what I know. Why do I want to hear it again? I'd rather hear what other people have to say.
What would be one book that you'd recommend to our listeners? And it could be from any genre. Of course, we'll put a link to Dealing with Meetings You Can't Stand on your show notes page as well.
That is the first one I thought of. And then the meetings book. Boy, I just read or listened to on Audible a book called Sapiens. It's the story of the human race of mankind. And wow, that was what a fascinating read about how our unique ability was to create conceptual things, whether it's conceptual things like religions or nationalism or capitalism or all these agreements that are really just agreements of our imagination together. What a ride that was from prehistoric days all the way to now. I'm seeing everything in a different way. Sapiens.
Okay, Fast Leader Legion, you can find links to that and other bonus information from today's show by going to fastleader.net/Rick Brinkman. Okay, Rick, this is my last hump day hold on question. Imagine you were given the opportunity to go back to the age of 25, and you've been given the opportunity to take the knowledge and skills that you have now back with you, but you can't take everything back. You can only choose one. So what skill or piece of knowledge would you take back with you, and why?
Wow. Well, I think I would actually acknowledge that your intuition is right and trust your intuition, because I've always done that. And I got involved in my profession basically overnight. I wanted to be a physician, and then I found out about a holistic physician from a guy in a park when I was on a 3-month open-ended trip after college, and discovered naturopathic medicine, holistic medicine, and boom, I was enrolled the next day. When I met my wife, I knew as soon as I met her, and 5 months later we were married. Now it's been 37 years. So I would just tell myself to do what you're doing. You trust your intuition. It's all right on.
Rick, it was an honor to spend time with you today. Can you please share with the Fast Leader Legion how they can connect with you?
Well, they can certainly find me at dealingwithmeetings.com. That's a unique site within my site of Dr. Rick Brinkman, and there's all kinds of resources there, agenda template, cage rattling template, how you convince people to do an experiment with your meetings. That's probably the most direct way. drrickbrinkman.com, or just remember dealingwithmeetings.com, and then there's links to the rest of me.
Rick Brinkman, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. The Fast Leader Legion honors you and thanks you for helping us get over the hump. Thank you for joining me on the Fast Leader Show today. For recaps, links from every show, special offers, and access to download and subscribe, if you haven't already, head on over to fastleader.net so we can help you move onward and upward faster.